At Gen Con 2012, Fantasy Flight Games released their initial batch of product for their X-Wings miniatures game. Since then, they have released several iconic ships, but this, however, is Imperial Aces, which is their first dual ship expansion, which is a very exciting addition for the state of the game. Hey, I'm Dalton with NerdyRaptor, and let's get into this. So the really cool thing about this expansion is the fact that Fantasy Flight's kind of, they're moving beyond the movies, because we've seen how TIE Fighters do in the movies. They're really going into a lot of the video games, the books that really make up the extended universe. And with these, there's brand new pilots and a couple new upgrades. Oh, don't even need the knife. So, there is the box we're gonna have in here. List of contents. On top of that, like all the other big expansions so far, is a new mission, which is really exciting for the game. You get to really see these ships in action. They really highlight a lot of the benefits of using them. There, we've got the two, these are alternate painted TIE interceptors. This first one is one of the 181st. Now those are for, if you've read a lot of the novels, the most prominent one being the Shadows of the Empire video game novelization. They talk about the 181st, and if you look there, you see the red blood stripe. Now these pilots, we get to kind of prove how hardcore they are. The other one we've got is the red Emperor's Guard. This one is actually introduced as a paint scheme in the Star Wars Galaxy video game, if any of you ever played that. As you've probably noticed, these literally are just the recolored of the interceptors, and they're pretty detailed, as the old ones were. A lot of attention is paid on the blood stripes. There's no smudges. There actually is a slight color difference as it goes through the different parts of the ship. They're still built pretty solid, like everything else in the X-Wing line has been. So there's that, and Fantasy Flight maintains their excellent quality for these ships. From here, let's move on to the cardboard components. You've got your sheets, which are going to have, I'm really excited for this one. It's got shield tokens. That's right, you finally will have Imperial fighters that don't get shot down in 2 hits. The movement dials and a few new tokens. These tokens are really for the mission. They're made just for that, which once again is really cool. All right, so we have a total of 4 new unique pilots, 2 for the Imperial Guard, which are Kanor Jax and Kyrkanos. These guys are really about bringing the hurt to your opponents. Like, their abilities are all about getting additional firepower, things like that. Whereas the Interceptor, we have the 181st Interceptor. We've got Tetran Cole and Lieutenant Laurier. These guys are really cool because, the Interceptor is already hard to pin down, and they add more abilities to that. Another thing that's exciting besides the unique pilots is actually the Guard. The generic kind of Royal Guard pilot has the ability to take upgrades, which is a huge thing for the TIE Fighters, as most Imperial players will know. You'll get 1 or 2 unique pilots, and they'll have a really good selection of abilities, but nothing else. As far as the abilities themselves, the upgrades, there's not really any new ones here, except for a Royal Guard TIE, which is for TIE Interceptor only. It is a title. But you can then equip 2 different modifications on top of that, so you're getting a lot more mileage, and once again goes back to your TIEs. You just can't do it unless their pilot skill's lower than 4. Cool for the Imperial though is you get Push to the Limit, you get 2 of those, Targeting Computer, Opportunist, Hull Upgrade, and Shield Upgrade. Shield Upgrade's why there's shields in this one. What's really cool about Imperial Aces is hopefully it'll shift the metagame. These new ships, while they're statistically very similar to the ones you already have, the new pilots and everything will actually give some dogfighting teeth to the Imperials, which they kind of desperately need. I know we're all super aware of the TIE Swarm metagame, which either you can deal with it or you can't, but it's very popular. It's still out there winning events. And I'm hoping this actually changes it up a bit, because it's not very fun facing the same army every time you play an Imperial player. One of the really cool things about Imperial Aces is, once again, like I mentioned, the shields before, you'll finally have some of that staying power that the Rebels have. You won't have your Interceptor going in there and getting 1 good round in, and then suddenly you're down a ship. You'll actually be able to stay and actually focus on the dogfight, which is what this game's all about, and this expansion really highlights that. Honestly, as a Rebel player, I'm actually finally enticed to kind of pick up some Imperial stuff. These ships they're different, they're interesting, they actually add something new for that faction. Because so many times whenever playing against Imperial players, they'll fly in, get 1 or 2 good hits in, and then they're gone. They just get blown up on your return fire. There's no staying power until now. I guess what's almost, I mean, it is a disadvantage for the Imperial Aces is there's no 9-skill pilots. That's probably a bit more of a balancing factor because the Rebels only have 2, and right now I believe there's only 2 for the Imperials. So there's that to consider as well. While we're on it, like another thing is you're not going to be truly as tanky as some of the Rebel ships. While as they all come with inherent shields, you've got to spend the points whenever you're building your fleet to get the shielding on these guys. But they're capable of it, which is a big step for most of the Imperial fleet. So for Imperial players, I would definitely say pick this up, especially if you're tired of just always playing TIE Swarm. I mean, once again, it's the thing to play, and this should change that. Rebel purists, I don't know if I'd go for this. It's interesting, but it doesn't really add anything that you don't have access to in your Rebel ships already. I mean, there is the new mission, which is a very cool one, but it's kind of focused for the Imperial player. And if you've got a buddy, an Imperial buddy who's picked it up, you've got the mission. And it's Rebels versus Imperial, so not really something you should buy as well. Overall, I'd say I give this expansion about a 75%. It's a really good showing by Fantasy Flight Games to stick to the extended universe of Star Wars and add some new things to the game. As a Rebel player, I don't know that I really picked this up. You're going to see a lot of these things whenever your friend decides to play it against you. For Imperial players, though, I mean, there's so much new stuff added. The wealth of new upgrades is huge. For the full review of this game and many others, head over to NerdyRaptor.net.